don't have to clean your room when you're on vacation.
Most of all, I'm scared of walking out of this room and never feeling the rest of my whole life the way I feel when I'm with you.
Usually I have it about here. Have you done podcasts before?
I have not, actually.
Okay.
I'm a novice.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to it. It's just try to stay close to the mic. Like, I'd get in a little bit closer to it.
Right.
Unfortunately, we just have to share the one.
That's fine.
But
I did college radio, though, so
okay.
I understand the dynamics.
You're used to that, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what college did you go to?
University of Maryland.
Damn, are you from Maryland or are you from...
No.
You just went out there?
Yeah, I followed some woman that I was, like, involved with.
Like, unbeknownst to her, you just followed her, like, stalked her? And because I could see you doing that.
She went out with a friend of hers, and then I went out after that. And
okay.
I was sort of in between relationships, and...
So why not just add another one in there?
There you go, man.
Yeah, just run away.
Self-destructive motherfucker, man.
I feel it.
So, and run away is pretty much what I did. Yeah, I just disappeared in the middle of the fucking night. Went to Baltimore. I went to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is a small school. It's like 9,000 students.
Like a little satellite for the university.
Yeah, it's a very well-kept secret, though. I mean, because... it's a really good school, and I had gone to Ohio State for a little while, and I really hated it because it was just massive, and when I went to the University of Maryland, like, I never saw teaching assistants. I always talked to full professors. Most of my classes were maybe 30 students or less, than that. I didn't have those large survey classes, any of that shit going on.
What'd you go for?
I studied cultural anthropology.
Okay.
I originally went to study art. I started out studying art at Ohio State.
I think, to my knowledge, University of Maryland is known for like their fine art program or something. Or I could be making it up.
Now it's a big tech school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the university where I went, it's big tech school now. But they do have some art and tech kinds of things going on too. So.
Makes sense. Well, let me introduce you here.
Okay.
My guest today is Sam Hoar, local comedian, friend, and sometimes escort. You like that?
Hey, Valentine's Day is coming up.
Yeah. You're looking for some work. Well, shit. All right. Well, let's start there, man. So you grew up in Columbus here?
No, Mansfield.
Mansfield.
Yeah, cultural wasteland of the Midwest.
Yeah, oof.
Yeah,
it's a bad
I tell
one.
people everything. The best thing to know about Mansfield is there's 6 roads out of it.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, right. I don't like any city that doesn't have a skate park. I feel like that's a rule for me.
Yeah.
If they have a skate park, it's big enough for me to feel comfortable there.
I went back there a few years ago because when I lived there, I lived in a sort of a working class neighborhood, blue collar neighborhood. But everybody knew everybody on the street. I could go to any house if I needed help when I was a kid. In the summertime, we'd have these huge hide-and-seek games and shit. Kids would come from all the blocks.
I used to do that same shit, too.
Yeah?
It's I feel like, I probably sound like every other old person out there, but it's like, coming in when the streetlights turn on, I don't think is a thing anymore.
Right.
Kick the can I don't think that's a thing. I think people are just too afraid to even be out there.
We slept out in the backyard, in the summertime.
Dude,
shit, I did. In the summertime, I hit, the door at 8 o'clock in the morning because, like, 2 blocks over was just massive woods and fields and shit because we lived on the outskirts of the city. Fuck, walk a mile to school. There wasn't any, wasn't any of this like, somebody's going to grab your ass kind of stuff or anything.
Just going creaking and
Absolutely.
Shit. Yeah, dude. Just little crawdads. Just fucking around. Yeah.
There was a place, and tell me if I'm stepping on you too much, because I'm,
What do you mean? It's like
interrupting you.
I've already had 2 people bogart this podcast, so I'm not going to let it happen again. Trust me.
Where I grew up, there was a place called Devil's Canyon. And it was like
fun.
a glacial formation, big canyon, and like just a small creek ran through it, but it's like a 50-foot drop, and we go down there all the time. I used to build these model cars, and then take them and set them on fire and push them over the side.
Always burning shit as a kid, dude. I remember one time lighting a fire down in the woods behind our house, and my mom's just at the top of the hill, just looking down, just screaming at me, like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was just like, "Hold on, I'm almost done."
There was a kid that lived across the street from me. Well, the two of them, Jack and Nick, and they were both just batshit fucking crazy. Like Nick, like their old man had fallen asleep in his car, like in the parking lot where he worked, and carbon monoxide came and killed him.
Jesus!
Killed him. So they were just, and plus on top of that,
This is when they were younger. That
yeah. I mean, they were just
wow.
like little kids, and their old man was like, this hard case fucking hillbilly, and their mom was like super religious, like they went to church like 3 days a week, that kind of shit.
Oh God!
And but Nick and Jack,
they were the worst.
They
then.
were fucking nuts, man. And Jack, we used to go out and set fires in the fields, and one day we were out there, and we were setting these fires, and Jack had let them get a little bit bigger. And a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and I liked playing with fire, but I was always the kid that kind of said, "Yeah, we should stop now."
There's a certain point where it gets a little scary.
And finally, I just looked at him and said, "I'm out of here, man," And I took off, and I circled back around and hid in the weeds behind him. He set the whole fucking
Jesus. He didn't have you there to just draw the line.
He's up there with a big sheet of cardboard, like trying to knock it out, but
Which is
he's
just
really
gonna make
going
it
fan in
worse.
the flames. And finally, we
Fucking
just
kids.
disappeared, like never got caught, but it was like, we were always burning shit.
Kids are the worst. I'm conflicted because I do think that, if your kids grow up to be fucking idiots, then you're the idiot.
Right.
Like, the parents failed. The older generation failed. Like, we're supposed to be smarter than you.
Right.
But I don't think that works up until, at least until you're 25. Until you're 25, you're still just way fucking stupider than any adult out there,
Well, their mom remarried this guy, Ralph. And Ralph was very nice, but really effeminate. Like total polar opposite of their old man. And they just walked on top of him. But
I'm sure.
I remember they had a sister.
That was probably more of a roommate than a husband. You know what I mean?
They had a sister, and she cut her forehead, and her head wound bleed like crazy. It was just their mom was like just running around going, "Oh Lord, have mercy, oh Lord." She couldn't attend to the
Pray
fucking
away the
wound.
pain. Yeah. Why not? I've always known a good prayer to stitch up a wound.
They were scary kids, man. They really were. I think Jack is either dead or he was in prison for a while, and Nick ended up going into the military. But I remember
It's
Nick,
usually one of the two cages.
Nick
that
in
you're
high school,
thrown in.
man, was drunk every fucking day I saw him, man. I mean, he'd go to these like little carryouts with a screwdriver and pop open the back door and go in and steal
Jesus.
shit, man. But that's
some small town shit right there.
Both these guys that they didn't know pain, like they couldn't feel pain. It seemed, like they were just nuts.
Well, they're probably so tortured.
Maybe.
That also just
I think their old man dying really hit them.
I'm sure it did.
In a way that they never.
There's no way someone comes out of that unscathed and not a little fucked up.
It was really tragic. It was really tragic.
Oh,
So.
that's fucked up. Way to open it up on a fucking positive note.
But I went back to Mansfield a few years ago to my neighborhood, that I grew up in, and I remember it being rather idyllic, like it was pretty nice, And I called my brother up after I drove down the street, and I said, "Dude, I don't remember growing up in the fucking slum, man. The place was just trash. I mean, the house I grew up in, the siding was peeling off of it. They cut the trees down in the front yard. I mean, and my old man had worked on that fucking house, forever.
I think a lot more urbanization. Like, people are not just making cities bigger, but more people are moving to the city and just getting out of it. I mean, because what the fuck's out there? Unless you like that, small town, whatever.
Well, all the industry tanked, and
most of the saying. It sounds like
jobs went away.
There was probably manufacturing work and
a lot of it.
A lot of maybe.
And it fucking disappeared.
Yeah, of course.
I
mean, it's just the fact. In Ohio, we see a lot of that. There's a lot.
This is a town with 50,000 people. Had 5 newspapers at one point.
That's popping.
Yeah.
What the fuck are they talking about? Who won the best pony prize at the local
they were
fair?
all competing shit, man. All competing, different political.
Probably a lot of
stuff.
meth stings and I don't know. Was meth going on back then?
No.
Because this is 1913.
Yeah. But it was a big mob town. It was a big mob town for a while, like
that makes sense.
Bootleg operations and shit like that. So, yeah.
Hold on, I think I hear my cat.
Yeah, I heard something.
She likes to just let her voice be heard. That's Sweet Pea right there.
What's your name?
My co-host, Sweet Pea.
Cool. Oh, I like cats.
She'll come say hi at some point.
Yeah. So.
Well, shit. All right. Well, University of Maryland for some girl.
Right.
Again, we're still not sure if she was aware that you went out there.
Oh no, I married her. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was married to her for a long time.
So that worked out. Well.
No. No, she's dead.
Oh Jesus Christ!
We came back here to go to graduate school.
This is the second time I've laughed about someone dying.
I came back here to go to graduate school, and I was in Bowling Green, and she was with me for a very short period of time, and then she moved back here to Columbus, up on Northwood, on campus. There's a little row of like townhouses with like musicians and shit and people that we'd known for years. And the guy that lived next door to her, he's dead too, was a long-term coke dealer. Like he kind of kept the Comfest fuel for a long time, and she started getting into blow.
Oh.
And after that,
blow is, was she OD'd
cocaine.
on cocaine?
No,
it turned into
cocaine and
heroin
alcohol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I could do a whole hour on that shit.
This is while you were still married to her?
Oh yeah. Oh,
damn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
rough, man.
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, by the time we separated, she probably weighed about 80 pounds.
Fuck.
Yeah, she was just like fucking skin and bones, and fucking nuts. I mean, if you know anybody that does a lot of coke, I know
a lot of people that do a lot of coke.
It makes you crazy, man.
It does. It depends. I know a lot of people that just weekend warrior it.
If they do that,
and it seems to work,
right.
Kind of.
Right.
Although there's always that like Tuesday that they just have
right.
leftover coke, and you
right.
just see them, and you're like, "That's weird.
Right.
You're fucked up on a Tuesday."
But if they start showing up at 4 a.m. to get a couple of rails before they go to work,
yeah, that's. Fortunately, the people that I know that do that, I'm not. I've lost a lot of friends to overdoses, so if I ever see it get really bad, I'm not even nice about it. I just say can't be with you, can't be around you. I get too close to that shit.
Right.
It's too fucked up.
Right. Yeah, I mean it was sort of this very gradual evolution, you kind of watch it. But I remember I hung with her for a long time because I thought she had other medical issues that weren't being addressed, and was hard for me to sort of work through the fact that it was just, she didn't want to go to the doctor because the doctor is just going to tell her to quit doing drugs.
Right. I mean, there's probably a sense of denial on both your ends, right?
Yeah. So.
Jesus Christ.
But I had a friend of mine, tell me at one point, she said, after all of it after we'd gone through the divorce and everything, she said, I was watching you die. And I'm like, yeah, y'all could have said something.
So it could have maybe mentioned
several people
something.
said this kind of shit to me, like I knew there was something going on, but I didn't want to say anything.
Dude, that's the worst.
That's fucked up.
I haven't had anyone die that I'm with, but I've had where after the breakup, they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys were awful together," and I'm like, "What the fuck?"
I mean, if you could have validated where I was coming from a little bit, I might have been like not taking so goddamn long to get to that point. I mean, it was just.
Yeah, that shit's hard though when you see what you want to see in people,
That's exactly what it was.
And especially you don't want to believe that someone that you love like that is going through something that's so real, because that's real shit. So
well, she's absolutely brilliant and a great writer, and just a mess. I mean, by the time it was all finished, she had literally alienated everybody who had supported her or who was her friend. Like even from childhood, and her only real friend was the guy next door that was keeping her,
Yeah, I mean that's your only friend when you're an addict is your dealer,
right.
And that's not even a friend. All right, well, fuck, dude. Like, what? I'm gonna have to write a blurb like fucking Sam and I talk about death and drugs. This is terrible.
Well, that's partially where my sense of humor comes from.
I believe it.
So, coping mechanism.
One thing that I've also learned, I like to kind of stay a little focused on origin stories of comedy. Because you've been doing it for how long now?
Maybe a couple of years.
Like maybe a little bit before I started doing
it. A little bit, yeah. I took a couple breaks to leave the country for a while, so they weren't solid years.
Is that before or after you murdered the people?
It was after.
It was that, yeah, that makes sense, right?
You can edit that out, right?
Yeah, I'll bleep it out.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Where's the mark?
No. Yeah. But, so not too long ago then.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was, for a long time, pursuing a different passion. I was a disability rights advocate for a long time. I've done policy work. I've been on statewide, organizations.
Like building ramps for people?
No. Like, actually, writing policy, shaping, like law and stuff like that. We're for state in Ohio, here in Ohio.
Okay. What was the first
disability
thing?
Rights.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like making sure the
not building them, but
not building them, but making sure the ramps get built. I guess is what I should have said.
That kind of stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have disability in your family?
I'm autistic.
Oh, okay. So that's where it comes from, or that's is that where you got into it, or?
No. I when I was a kid, there was a woman up the street who had Down syndrome. And she's a big woman, but her mom used to set her out in the front yard in a baby crib, and and I
don't want to laugh at this, but the image is great.
No, it's fucking great, isn't it? Now Penny was marvelous. I mean, she's very profoundly retarded, or developmentally disabled. But I always remembered thinking how cool it was you could be a kid still and be clearly in your 20s.
You mean like as an adult and still just have such a good time with everything?
I mean, she was always joyous. And then when I was in the military, I was in Indianapolis, and I was really not enjoying the military that much. And I was on a bus, and it was a rainy night. I was in Indianapolis. It was a rainy night, and the bus was going past this guy who very clearly had cerebral palsy. He was on a bicycle, and I remember clearly seeing his face as he looked over his shoulder. I mean, he was just terrified that this bus was going to hit him. And I remember just thinking, I don't like this. I don't like that the way this person feels, kind of thing. So when I was in the Navy, I was on a destroyer, and here we go again. My best friend on the boat committed suicide. And I went AWOL.
God, that's 4 deaths you've told me about so far today. Let's keep them going.
I went back to Mansfield, and just kind of like, I was there for 18 days, and then I went back and turned myself in, and I said, I can't, I'm not going to do this, I can't do this, So they sent me to all these psychiatric techs and all these other people for evaluation, and they told me that, you're not suitable for the military. I mean, even though I had 4.0 marks, I mean, I graduated at the top of my class. I was trained as a photojournalist in Indianapolis. I ran the shipboard radio station, did all their photography.
Did they know you were autistic when you entered into
No, I've never been formally diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
But my current wife, my wife, who has a master's in special education, insists you're absolutely on the fucking spectrum, man.
It's somewhere on that fucking thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm high functioning Asperger's, probably. If it were formal diagnosis, but. But I came back. They said, clearly, you're not suitable for the military. We're gonna discharge you, and then
like an honorable discharge.
Oh yeah. And then we went to Cuba, and we were down in Cuba. And my friend at that point, Jimmy, had gone AWOL. He's having family problems, and then we went to Cuba for combat ops training, and we were there for about a week when. And Jimmy had been gone for maybe a month and a half already when Jimmy showed up. Like, they brought him back on board the ship. And a few days later, there's something not right about him. I knew that, but I didn't know what was going on with him. And a few days later, I'd left the boat to do some business. And when I came back on, they said, Jimmy's dead, and just, I lost my shit, and he had hanged himself. And
just like in one of the
in the one of the workspaces. And after they removed his body and everything, it was a few days later. They called me into the place where he hanged himself. They wanted to interview me to see if I knew anything about what had occurred. And I remember walking in there, and there was a briefcase sitting on a workbench, and it was open, and there were contact sheets. You know what contact sheets are? Like
not necessarily.
With analog photography, like old school photography, they'll take the negatives and and then you use those to pick up. And there was a contact sheet sitting there, and I remember I looked down and I see this face, this sort of distorted, like distended face, and it never registered to me at all what I was looking at. And then the guy that was interviewing me just reached over and closed the briefcase like that. And it was at that point I realized I was looking at Jimmy's face. His eyes are all bugged out because he'd hanged himself.
And took a picture of it?
They photographed his body, yeah.
Oh, he was showing you the content. I was thinking because...
He wasn't showing it to me. I wasn't supposed to see that. I just happened to glance at it and then started talking to him. And then that's when I connected the two things, when he closed it like that. Like, if he'd have left it go, I probably never would have thought a thing about the damn thing,
Just been like he died of something or...
Well, I wouldn't even have registered that it was him, because it was so strange, But we went back to Norfolk, right? And at this point, I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm not doing this crap anymore. And
I'm stressed out just hearing about this.
Well, and so it made me crazy. We got back, and to be perfectly honest with you, I let them think that I was like seriously.
You want it out.
Absolutely. I let them, whatever you.
This we can edit out of the
whatever.
podcast.
I don't care. Whatever you fucking think, about me, I don't really give a shit. And they're reassuring me, I go to see all these psychiatrists and all this stuff, and they're reassuring me that. Yeah, you're not.
They don't want someone that doesn't want to be there anyway. It's not the draft, It's not.
They tell me we're you're getting out, and then like we're in port, and they say they passed the word to sortie out the ships because there was a storm coming up the coast, and I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, we'll go out and anchor in the bay, so we're away from the piers, so when the heavy waters come in, we don't bang against the piers. And I said, well, how long do you think we'll be out there? And they said, oh, we'll probably sail from the Med there. So at that point, I realized I'm not going anywhere.
You're on that ship.
So you were not supposed to leave the ship unless you had business off the boat. I went down to my workspace. I grabbed some civilian clothing. I threw it in a trash bag, okay? I climbed up and walked off the brow of the ship with the trash bag like I'm going to the dumpster. And I look at my friend of mine, and he just nods at me because he fucking knows. He knows exactly what's going on. I hit the ground running. I ran to the bowling alley. I took my uniform off. I put my civilian clothing on. I stuffed it in the trash can. I ran all the way to the airport. And I get to the airport, and I'm freaking out thinking, oh, they're going to be waiting on my ass there. I can't. So I turn around. I run all the way back to this bus stop on the beach, and I get there just in time to catch a fucking Greyhound. So I get this bus, and I come back to Mansfield, okay? And for 52 days, man, 52 days, I lived in a house trailer in the middle of a cornfield, hanging out with a woman named Dee Dee, doing psychedelics and drinking a shitload of wine and trying to figure out what the fuck am I going to do.
I love the idea of like a minute before you step off the boat, like they're just coming into your thing to be like, oh, by the way, we're about to escort you to the airport. Like you just panicked for no reason. They were about to just be like, no, you're good to go. Everything's fine. I imagine that happening just the whole time. You're like, oh shit. You're like Jason Bourne, dude. You got to erase your identity.
I did not know that people are constantly AWOL. And they don't put any resources into looking for your ass, man. If they catch you, they catch you, you know. But most, they get you on a traffic stop or some shit like that.
So did you get...
Well, I came back to Mansfield, okay? I'm there for 52 days. I lose 50 pounds, man. I lost 50 fucking
Psychedelics will do that.
And stress.
Well, yeah.
You know? And I'm hanging out with this woman, Dee Dee. And Dee Dee is, like, just fucking nuts, you know? I mean, she's beautiful, but she's nuts, you know? Which sort of tends to... Are you
kind of hooking up with her, too?
Oh, yeah.
I like Dee Dee so far in this story. She's my favorite character so far.
She was a dancer.
I want to get to know... Oh, yeah. I want to get to know Dee Dee.
Whenever you saw Dee Dee, her eyes were about...
You're about to tell me she's dead, aren't you?
I don't know what happened to her.
I know where you're going with this.
I would be willing to bet that she probably is.
Probably. God damn it.
So anyway, after 52 days, my old man takes me to a shrink, and the shrink talks to me for like 3 minutes and says, yeah, no, you're not good for the military. I'll write you a letter, okay? So 52 days, it's like, fuck it, you know, I got to cut.
So are you AWOL at this point?
Oh, yeah.
You've been commissioned
twice
AWOL?
Now. Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, twice now. I mean, they knew where I was. I contacted them and said, you know, this is where I'm at.
So AWOL doesn't sound as scary. Doesn't seem as scary from what you're telling me from what I thought it was.
No. I figure I gotta cut the cord here. You know, I gotta figure something out. So I go back to Norfolk and I turn myself in. You know, and they put me in a holding facility. A holding facility that's open 24/7 because there are constantly sailors coming in from DNA. Constantly. I mean, I wasn't locked up or anything at all like that. I mean, it's just
like, hey, just be here while we figure this shit out.
You got to do a lot of shit, you know, to get locked up. I mean, you got to be a bad guy, you know. And so I was there. I was doing like painting and shit like that. And finally, you know, they call me, you know. Come on, you're going back to your ship, which is now, you know, in the fucking Persian Gulf, okay?
The whole place the reason you were trying to avoid and ran away the whole time.
So I'm like, fuck it, I gotta see this through, you know? So they fly me and like 10 other dudes, like...
God, that seems so expensive. Shouldn't they just let you go? Like, what the fuck?
I fly me from Norfolk to Philadelphia, okay? And we're in the Philly airport, and one of my friends looks at us and goes, bye. And he takes off,
Dude.
You know? So they fly me from Philly to Spain, okay? I'm in Spain for a few days. You know, at that point, I'm confined to quarters. I can't go anywhere. I can't leave the base at all. You know, they've taken my identification, all of that shit.
Damn.
And then a few days later, they say, come on, you're going. They put me on a C-140 cargo plane, which is like a fucking gymnasium with wings, man. It's huge. But it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like, there's like 5 crew members on this gigantic ship, and we're up above the earth, you know, miles above it, and they had given me this box lunch with like a big hunk of fried chicken and a giant chocolate chip cookie. And I remember sitting there looking out at the stars, man, and eating this cookie, and just, it was fucking great, you know? And one of the other dudes on, so we get this, I get to Bahrain, okay, in Saudi Arabia, you know, I get to Bahrain, and...
This is also you can get into the middle of the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
This is all just your process of getting it. Sounds like a vacation
I get to Bahrain, and I get off the plane at Bahrain, and these guys are walking around with these huge fucking Kalashnikovs, these automatic like rifles, you know, and shit. And you couldn't wear your uniforms because people would that's worried about snipers.
About what year is this?
81.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good for the story to place it because this is pre, you know, crazy 9/11.
Oh yeah. Well,
this
before
is
that yeah. And I get off the plane and I'm, you know, I'm with all these people, and like this like electronics officer that was on the ship with me, who was coming to report to my ship, who was on the plane with me rather. He's like, we had talked the whole time, you know, we'd gotten along really well, and he's like, why'd they give me your ID and stuff? And I just looked up and said, oh, I've been away for a while.
Just had your away message up for...
So they heloed me, helicopter, out into the middle of the Gulf, and they lower me down on a wire with this thing around me from a helicopter onto the deck of the ship. Like, and I'm absolutely convinced at this point in time that
firing squad.
They're going to drop my ass in the water, man, and leave me the fuck behind. I'm on this ship for about a week. I go to captain's mast. Now, the Captain York, was a fucking psycho. I mean, he was a complete asshole. You've seen Mutiny on the Bounty? Ever seen that?
Oh, man.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
I feel like my mom made me watch that back in the day.
Yeah, he was one of these people who'd never been in combat, but fancied himself a fucking soldier. Like at one point, I found this letter in his quarters because I had to clean it. That said, when we're at sea, the ship is my kingdom, and all the sailors are my subjects.
It's like the Scientology, Ron Hubbard, that motherfucker.
Yeah.
The Scientology guy, just how he, never got anywhere in the Navy, and he just, went on to, basically rule his own Navy.
So I go in front of the captain at mast, which basically, there are witnesses, and you stand in front of this guy, and he reads the charges. And at that point, I had applied for conscientious objector status, and he was like, "You mean if I had a gun pointed at you and you had a knife strapped to your boot, you wouldn't try to go for that knife and try to kill me?" And I'm like, inside, I'm thinking, I would so love to cut your fucking head off right now. No, I wouldn't do that, sir. That's all I had to say to him. 2 days later, they heeled me back off the boat, back to Bahrain, back to Spain, back to Philadelphia. Tell me if I stick around for a week, they'll fix my teeth for free. I said, I'm out of here. They gave me $300. I'm gone.
Jesus Christ.
I come back.
You make me want to join the military just to go AWOL. This sounds great.
I come back to Mansfield, start working at a fucking gas station.
They're going to hate this episode. I might get some messages from the government. Who knows? That'd be fucked up. Oh, Jesus Christ, man.
So that was my military tenure.
Okay.
But I was honorably discharged. I got all my benefits and everything. I mean,
well,
I was
clearly you're autistic, so none of this is your fault.
I was not an objectionable
anyway.
sailor. I mean, I kept my shit together, but they fucked with me.
Yeah, that's a fucking crazy. To be honest, that's a crazy story to just tell, and I can't believe that this is the first podcast that you've ever fucking told that story. That was gold the whole time. I'm like, don't say anything. Don't fucking say anything. Just let them keep going. This is crazy. Fuck. Do you need another beer?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. I'll take a piss,
cool.
and then this is a good little breaking point. Sorry about having to. I mean, getting you a beer is one thing, but when I first started doing these podcasts, I could go the whole time without taking a piss, and it gets shorter and shorter.
It's fine.
I just wanted to apologize.
No, you're fine. And the Asperger's makes the eye contact uncomfortable anyway.
No.
That's why I use the cards.
Isn't it weird to, when you have these conversations, you have to do that sometimes, but at the same time, and I'm really bad just because I'm stoned and insecure and just uncomfortable all the time anyway, so...
Well, that's why I used the index cards, because I had to figure out some kind of logical device to give me a break from looking at people. It's a sort of a natural, sort of opportunity for me. I don't really even read them anymore. I
have to admit something to you, and I don't mean this in any bad way, but it's just unfortunate, I think, that when you do, because I've seen you put the cards away and you start to do maybe your last half of your set without the cards. Somehow it just doesn't punch through the same way. And I think that's only because I'm conditioned to the cards.
You mean when I throw them aside?
Yeah. I feel like I'm only conditioned to the cards, so I think just for me, and I feel bad saying that because you're fucking hilarious. I guess I just need to see it more and more and more and more. Are you trying to wean off the cards?
No, well, I have of two minds here. One is I some ways I would like to be untethered from them, and I've thought about getting a wireless mic or doing some shit like that so I could move around a little bit more.
Interesting.
Because
a one-man show.
Yeah, because I want to be I did. I want to be more physical. I did. Were you there when I was at Bossy Girl the other night and I screamed into the bag?
Was it this Saturday? Or if it's Tuesday, then, I'm at Jimmy V's, so I'm never at the
It was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on stage and I had one of these like beer bags that I had stuffed in my pocket, and I just reached in and grabbed the bag and went, like I screamed in the bag, you know. But I'm evolving this thing about how my therapist says I need to like capture and label my anger more so that I can process it more effectively at a later date, and then figure out how to connect that to someone sitting in the audience, like they're
interesting.
But I want to be more physical instead of just standing, you know, sort of stock still in front of the microphone. So part of me wants to get away from the cards, but the other part of me wants to find a way to make them even more amplified and more part
just
of the
do
act.
It all.
You know,
just make it multidisciplinary.
I want to open it up and have like glowing lights come out of the box, or like
dude, that would be sick. If it was like red or something, and it's just like glowing. And
well, I've got this big yellow suitcase.
That would be really fucking good.
This big yellow suitcase that says "I'm happy you exist" on one side, and then when you flip it around, it says "Loan me $20." You know, and I'm thinking about putting, you know, the box inside the suitcase and bringing the whole thing on stage, and then, you know, doing that whole thing so that
you could hook up Christmas lights inside the excess space inside the briefcase.
Yeah. So that's what I want to do. Really, is make them more a part of the act, basically. Like, you know.
No, I like that idea. Because
it's different.
It is different. It's because I've suffered kind of through this myself, where I played the piano at Ethel's, and people are like, "Oh my fuck!" Like that was awesome. And it's like the one I've been doing the same jokes all week. That's the one night that it lands, and it's because it's broken up. It's musical. It's different. Right. I'm not just another person there with a microphone. Whatever. I understand. When I brought friends to open mics, the thing they get bored about the most is just everyone seems to be doing the same thing.
Right.
So it's nice to break up the monotony, right? With music or cards or a show or props or whatever it is. Right. But it sucks because I don't want to be like the first show and the only show I've ever been booked on. I didn't get booked on because I told the person I didn't want to play piano. Which in retrospect is a bad choice. Right. I should have just said, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway. Right. But it's just like, that it just sucks to be pigeonholed in something, you know?
I think when you do that shit, I don't like musical comedians very much.
Me neither.
I don't like them
Except Zach Galifianakis. Live at the Purple Onion is one of my favorite specials of all
If you
time.
do it just sort of as like as a joke, as a hoot, like, you know, as kind of a goof part of it, you know? But like dudes that like sing like novelty songs and shit like that, I mean...
Or even the Bo Burnham, like I think Bo Burnham is very talented and he's clearly doing a lot for a lot of people, but it's like musicals for me. I just turn it off. Right. However, I love, you know, all the Trey Parker and Matt Stone musicals. Sure. So it's like I like it if it's done well, but I fucking hate Family Guy, and it's seemingly the same thing. I just think Basketball is just one of the funniest movies ever fucking made. Right. But I don't know. I hate being pigeonholed in that, so I just wanted to bring that up to you.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I am. This is the thing I keep people would understand. I am, like, if it's well intentioned, I am way open to feedback. I mean, I'm clearly not. You know,
I thought I was shitting on you. That was.
I am clearly not a 20-something white guy, you know, which you know gives me an edge. Or not an edge necessarily, you know.
What are you trying to say about 20-something white guys?
Not a fucking thing, man. Just there's a lot of
them. You're just an 87-something white guy.
That's right. There's a lot of them, you know. But also I don't, you know, like I don't, you know, I don't want to stand up there and just, you know, talk about smoking pot and delivering pizzas and shit, you know.
Which, if it's done well, is very funny. Right. But I'm with you, where I'd rather take the crafting of the words or the story and take it to a place that isn't real or isn't just like me being goofy. I'd rather take it to a place of like either absurdity or complete debauchery. Right. Like that's where I like to go. Right. And it seems like you and I have very similar sensibilities.
Oh yeah, I mean,
my friends love you because you're as awful as I am.
I grew up in a just sort of an absurd world. I mean, my last name's Hoar. I don't do jokes about my
last name's Steak. Not the same thing, but we both got it. I
don't have to make jokes about my name. They write themselves. You know? You know, but like from the time, like when I was transitioned from grade school to when I was in grade school, I was the fucking shit, man. leading the class plays, won all the dance contests.
Really? You did theater like in middle school and shit? Okay.
And then when I transitioned to junior high, when all that adolescent bullshit hits, it literally, because I was a fairly naive kid, it literally took me 6 months into the fucking year to figure out why people were making fun of my name. Because it had never happened to me before in my entire life.
You know Mansfield was just full of whores back then.
But I didn't know that word existed. And then one day, my old man used to buy these these racy newspapers, like the Inquirer and shit like that. Those
all those white nationalist papers.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck they are. But I found that word, whore, and it was like, oh. Now I fucking get why they're saying, what's your mom's name, Ima, or 2-Bit. But it was fucking daily. I missed 128 days my senior year. I didn't go to school. Fuck it. I hated that goddamn place. When I figured out I could fucking go to my basement and wait till the bus went past and my old man and my old lady went to work and then come up and have a good time, in the house by myself, I just stopped going. I can be bored at home,
I know a lot of people like that. I did something very similar where my senior year I went to school from 9 to 12 and it was at a different school from the one I grew up in. Uh-huh. It was I gamed the system and even then I barely walked.
We lived on the other side of town. We moved out of town and then back into town and we weren't even in the fucking district.
Well, especially if you're a new kid, that's even worse.
I'm not starting over, man.
Fuck that. So were you accounted for? Like this is obviously back when they used sending Morse code in order to take attendance and
it was pigeons. They sent
this is shit.
Fuck you.
Damn, you look really good for pigeons.
But the vice principal would pull me aside and tell me, you got to bring a note in. And I would always say, yeah, okay, I'll bring a note. I never brought a fucking note in because my parents didn't know I wasn't going to school either, But I missed 128 days. I made my mom call the fucking high school and verify that I was graduating because I had been told that if you didn't graduate, they made you come up and give you a blank piece of paper anyway. It's like I'm not going to this fucking thing. Yeah, exactly. But I
real quick on the note thing. Mm-hmm. I used to have my mom. I would go and be like, hey, Mom, I do this to my dad more often than my mom because my mom's signature is really hard. But I used to go up to my dad and my mom and just be like, hey, we're learning how to customize our signatures in school. And they asked us to see what our parents' signatures look like.
Yeah.
So can you just write them down? And I learned that I could just forge fucking... Because back then, you only needed a yellow piece of... just a notebook paper.
Right.
And just a written note and with a signature.
Yeah, it wasn't prison camp.
Even when I was sick back in the day, my mom would be like, yeah, you write the fucking note, I'll sign it, and then just give it to the... So I would always just be my handwriting, and then I just forged that fucking signature. It was just what you did back in the day.
Right.
Just to be like, I don't want to go to school at all today.
I hated that fucking place, man.
Yeah, I don't think school's good for anyone, period. I honestly believe that. I believe that there should be a total... Two things I believe very strongly that should involve in this country. If I were to ever get politically involved, these are two things I actually care about. Prison reform and education reform. Right. We need to gut both systems, let everyone loose, and restart.
Yeah, my kids, she's unschooled. We have Tuesday group that we go to.
What does that mean?
She doesn't go to a public school. I mean,
Do you homeschool her?
Yeah. Okay. My wife has a master's. So
I thought you said unschooled.
Well, it's called unschooling because it's even less structured than homeschool. It basically, the theory underlying it is that kids, given access to resources, will find their passions, will find their directions, sort of thing. So, but we still do math and shit like that. I mean, basic kinds of things with her. But
that's the stuff that I feel like is necessary. But why the fuck am I taking?
But not this regimented social structure shit where you got to be there at 8 o'clock.
Especially when we're all so different.
Right.
And so you saying this is your child? You said you had a daughter.
Mm-hmm. She's 13.
13-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
How's she doing?
She's great.
Hell yeah.
She's super smart. She's very, very attractive.
Friends?
Very nice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because that's I think the biggest worry for people that homeschool or I guess unschool. This is the first time I'm learning about.
That's part of the reason why we go to the co-op, because it gave us access to a sort of social.
There's a lot of fucking hippie kids hanging around there. Dude, you don't think I can smell you truly from here? Come on,
there's some
fucking hippie shit.
Some kid there the other day had on a Knight's helmet the entire day, like. That shit.
I used to go to
beat the fuck like.
I used to go to school lock-ins. Like they in the middle school or elementary school. You'd go in overnight and watch like 3 movies and just hang out with your friends.
Sure.
And you'd be chaperones and sleep in the gymnasium. I used to go to those things in just full Batman garb, like with a Velcro cape,
nice.
And like just everyone was just like. I was like cool, but also into just dumb nerdy shit. Which dumb nerdy kind of sounds like.
Were you a jock?
So my path is kind of interesting. It starts off being I got
say
kicked,
it that way.
I get kicked out of basically my preschool teachers forced my mom to getting me out of preschool and into kindergarten early. So I was in kindergarten at age 3.
Oh, nice.
So then I'm in 4th grade at 4 years old.
You're in what?
Or sorry, 1st grade at 4 years old. Yeah, that's not really fucked up. That's not really fucked up. No, 1st grade at 4 years old. So and I turned 5, on Halloween. So I turned 5 later in the year. But I was always a year or a little bit sometimes under that behind.
Sure.
I graduated at 17. So I went from being smart and gifted, being forced into early education. And then from there I went on to basically be a prep. Ball necklaces, spiked bangs, bleached hair.
Nice.
Yeah, bleached hair. Abercrombie. Not Abercrombie and Fitch. I couldn't fit into that, but Abercrombie. Yeah, dude. Yeah. My dad was making like 6 figures at a time. Like he was the joke I have about him making 6 figures is real. Like he used to make a lot of money.
Right.
So it was a whole like middle class, upper middle class America upbringing in a suburb where I'm still catching shit on fire and I'm still breaking shit.
Right.
But I'm also like in school one of the nerdy, not nerdy, but one of the lower class cool kids. Like the Ashleys knew me. But I could talk to them, but they wouldn't. If I was sitting alone, they wouldn't just come to me. I'd have to go to them, sort of thing, right? So I was in, but I wasn't in.
Right.
And then started golfing, competitively golfing. Got really. I was actually naturally good at golfing, and I still am. I go to the driving range every now and then, and I can fucking, dude. I can. It feels good to do that. I don't know if you ever golf, but it feels fucking great.
I used to when I was younger. Yeah.
So I started golfing, and then my dad got into golfing because I got into golfing, and he thought it'd be a cool father-son thing. And eventually it got to the point where I'm like breaking down in tears, screaming at him, fighting with him because he's telling me I'm worthless and like you're not doing this right, constantly coaching me in a really bad way, and I said, "Fuck you, Dad." So then I picked up skateboarding, which my dad can't do that. Yeah, see, you called it. You're the first person I've ever fucking told this story to, and they called it. Where it's like, yeah, he can't do that. So once I started doing that, that's when I started like
getting into other
stealing stuff, breaking stuff, doing all kinds of other awful things. Never to people, always to things. I like breaking physical things. Growing up in punk rock and skateboarding, like you're just a destructive person. You're not a violent person. You're destructive. There's 2 different types of things, right? Right. At least that's the way I think about it. I
am sort of like a fucking nerve with a shirt on most of the time. I mean, I'm really clumsy and but I relate to what you're saying. I mean, my parents were more hands off. They weren't really. I mean, it kind of didn't.
The only time my dad got interest in me, it was when I found out in 5th grade that, and this is when I transitioned to skateboarding. Is when I found out that I played hooky one day. And my mom used to be a stay-at-home mom. She was on city council. She was like a politician, board of elections and stuff. So she stayed home one day, and I played hooky. I stayed home one day, and she had to go to a meeting, and she got all dressed up, and she's going out. It's about 11 o'clock, and I'm like, Mom, I want to go. And she's like, you can't go. And I'm like, I want to go. Like, I played hooky, you know that. And she's like, I know, but you can't go. You have to stay here. And I'm like, but I want to go. And I threw a fit. I fucking freaked out. I threw a fit. I was like, I want lunch. I took a day off to hang out with you. Fuck you. And she sat me down and told me that my father had been cheating on her ever since I was pretty much born. Yeah. I think like 6 months after or something like that. Yeah. And that they're going to discuss the divorce. And with my, she's going to meet my father. And then once that happened, it was just like me throwing a fit to me just shutting down. And ever since that moment, I've become more introverted, 100% isolated skateboarder. I'm gonna go around and do what I do because I can't trust people. And the worst part was during that same moment, my mom asked me. She said, "I'm moving to New Orleans." And you have to choose between your father and I.
See, I know that. Yep. I know that.
Yeah, and I told my mom. I tell my mom this all the time if it ever comes up. That was very irresponsible for her to do to me. But I do take ownership in...
How old were you?
I was in 5th grade, so I think I was...
Oh, so you were... Yeah. And you were behind the curve, so you were, what, 11?
I think I was 10. 10, yeah.
That's... my old man did the same thing when I was 17, and I couldn't make that fucking decision, man. I was just like... I mean, when...
They stayed together.
Your parents did?
They chose to stay together.
Yeah, see, my father never finished high school, you know, but he was fucking brilliant, could build anything. And he, you know, it was at a time when you could still kind of grandfather your way into shit. And he'd worked factory jobs most of his life. I mean, he had huge fucking arms for lifting tires and shit. I loved my father. I loved my mother very much. I mean, they were good, really good people. They were troubled.
I don't talk to my dad, really. Yeah. I love my mother dearly.
Yeah. They were troubled people, you know. My father was orphaned when he was 13. His parents didn't die. They put him in an orphanage because they couldn't afford to keep him.
At 13?
At 13.
What the fuck? How do you go that long and be like, we got 5 years and can't make it? Can't make it. We went 13,
when he was 17, he was in a POW camp during the Second World War.
What?
Yeah. He was. Is he
Japanese?
No, the German. When he enlisted during the Second World War.
Oh, I was thinking of a domestic camp for some reason.
No, he's Japanese.
I was like, is he Japanese? Is there something I don't know about?
Japanese?
I don't know.
You know. So no. He when he enlisted, he was a paratrooper and a corpsman, a medic. You know, and they parachuted into during D-Day, and he drifted behind enemy lines, and he and 2 other guys spent about 3 days running back and forth across France until they were cornered by the Nazis. And my old man used to tell me we had a hand grenade between the 3 of us and we buried it because we knew if they found it, they would fucking kill us. And so he was in POW camp for like a month before the end of the war, you know, and then, you know, when he came back, I mean, like I said, he never finished high school. I mean, he had handwriting of like, I mean, my handwriting's shitty, but mine looks like a 5-year-old doctor. You know, his was just like really, but he was smart, really smart guy, just never had any fucking advantages. But he worked these labor jobs, and then he got a job at a hospital as an aide. And he started going, they started sending him to night school. And he retired as the head of respiratory therapy at a hospital in Galion, Ohio. You know, he didn't go to college or any of that shit, but he was...
How the fuck?
Well, you used to be able to do that kind of shit.
Right,
you know?
right.
You know,
now you need, like, you have to spend $300,000 to get in anywhere.
But when he was working, he started working, you know, out of town at a different hospital. And he was gradually not coming home more and more and more and more, you know, until he wasn't coming home at all. You know, he just lived in this other town, you know. And then when I had just graduated high school, I think it was maybe the same day or a day after, he came in and said, you know, I'm leaving and, I want you to come and live with me. And I fucking, and this is what I'm saying, I understand that story. I couldn't make that fucking decision.
Who the fuck can't, even as an adult, I'd be like, both of you get the fuck out of my life. But as a kid, you don't have that option.
And that's the thing. He fucking disappeared. He disappeared, I didn't see him for a long, long time. And then 15 years later, he pops up and moves back in with my fucking mom. And I'm like, whoa, I don't want to know. I don't want to know any of this shit.
I want to see the videos, but other than that, I don't want to know
any of this stuff. And so we never, as an adult, we never had a relationship, really. We never had much contact. I took care of my mom for a long time after he left because she fucking fell apart. And then after about 4 or 5 years, it's like, I gotta fucking do my own thing. I got to get out of here. I have to get I felt obligated. I mean, I am an empath, and that's the thing. I felt obligated to care for her, because she cried every goddamn night. I mean, it was fucking horrible, and so it's sort of like, I just closed that door.
Did you get to a point though where you realized that your mom also made mistakes? Because that was the big adult moment for me, where I was like, neither of them are perfect. I just happened to choose sides because I was forced to,
right.
And because of that, now I'm suffering the repercussions. Right. And I'm not saying I don't love my mom,
right? And
I'm not saying I don't love my dad.
Sure.
I'm just saying that I get along with my mom because we went through it together, right. Where I didn't go through it with my dad. Right. Once my dad became a problem, it was shut off. That avenue was shut off.
Well,
that valve was closed.
They were both, and I'm not casting people in glass houses because I'm real fucked up, but they were both very flawed people. My mother,
all are.
My
That's
mother, when she was
being a human.
A teenager, was out with some friends of hers, and they were out riding around in a convertible, and they went up over a hill, and when they did, she flew up through the roof of the convertible and landed on the street and broke every bone in her face. And so when she was in the hospital, they took out all the reflective surfaces from the hospital so that she couldn't see her face. And I think that from that day forward, she was incredibly self-conscious, and an incredibly fragile human being. I mean, she was a wonderful. Both of my parents never put their hands on me, never physical with me in the slightest respect, or my brother for that matter. Never.
I got beat with spoons and utensils.
Never.
And
I went to bed without supper a lot of times.
Well, there's that. But I mean, I don't blame. My mom's from New Orleans. My dad's from Boston or Worcester. Mm-hmm. So, and they were both born.
Right.
Really, my mom was 40 when she had me. Like I'm raised by older people, so being hit, at least with utensils or whatever, wasn't that weird or strange. Right. I would never do that because, of course, that's. I've learned it doesn't do any good.
Right.
If I have a kid that turns out like me, I fucked up. You know what I mean?
But they were flawed people,
Of course.
And so my response really was just to go away. Me
too.
It was like, look,
you keep running.
I came out of high school. There was nothing for me. Okay, nothing. I couldn't. All my friends were going to college. I started working in fucking factories. I was working in lumber yards. I was carrying brick for block layers. I was running gas stations, building elevators down in Texas. I was doing all this fucking shit. I remember I got this job at Wick's Lumber Yard. We built prefabricated housing struts, like trusses. I had to be there at 6 o'clock in the fucking morning, which is it's Satan's hour. It's like oh, you're in hell. Okay, I remember I walked through the door and it was cold. It was sort of an indoor outdoor building because we worked with lumber, so it wasn't closed. And I walked into the break room, and the break room was this narrow fucking thing with this wooden bench and fluorescent lighting, and there were these 3 guys sitting on this bench smoking Camels or Lucky Strikes or some other fucking lung buster thing, and they had about 6 teeth between them, and I remember thinking, God, don't let this be my fucking life. You know, I mean, I was just,
little did you know how interesting your life would become.
Well, I was.
But you made a choice.
I didn't. You know, it was like I have to work. I have to make fucking money. You know, I have to pay my. You know, I have to pay my own way. You know,
but you also want to be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that something that's always been there? Like you've always, because I ask this of artists all the time because not all artists feel like they're artists.
Right.
But for me, I remember being like 6 years old and watching a movie with my brother and be like, I'm gonna do that someday.
See,
you like I remember having that, and then I remember having another feeling like that in high school while watching Life Aquatic by Wes Anderson. I saw that movie and I was like, that's what I want to do. It was less conceited, but more just like, that's what I want to do.
I always drew, and I always painted, and I always sang, and I always danced, and I always made art, and I always acted. I always did all that shit. You know, I didn't do it.
Is there a reason? Like, what does that drive? Do you think that makes?
I don't even know. I really don't even know.
I've tried to define this recently, and I think it's really just a frustration. Like, have you ever met people that are just they're happy? You know, like they're just okay with like their shitty lives of living in the suburbs.
That's my wife. It makes me fucking crazy. She's just
probably
so
not.
Goddamn mellow.
I mean, I don't know your wife at all, but I would assuming that she went through schooling to get a master's in, you know, special education. That doesn't seem like someone that's very happy. That seems like someone that's happy enough to empathize with the sadness of the world in order to create change.
Right.
That's what that sounds like to me. That doesn't sound like happy. I'm talking about dumb. I'm talking about dumb happy.
Well, I've worked with a lot of mentally retarded people, and that's
but that's a fun happy. That's not dumb. I mean, I guess technically it might. But
I mean, too stupid to know that their life's fucked up.
But like, I think there's a sense with every artist, like there's something that's unfulfilled, right? Like there's a reason.
Always.
There's a reason that we put ourselves on stage.
Always.
There's a reason that we put ourselves out there. There's a reason that we want to create, which is a whole other thing that I think a lot of stand-up comics, like people that just watch stand-up comedy don't know. Like as audience members, like we do a lot of alone time thinking. As well as we get 5 minutes a night tops, you know, unless you're, you know, whatever. But even then, you get very limited time as opposed to every other hour of the day that you spend thinking about your work, right? And what is it that you think that makes you want to do that? Do you want to be better than the previous like where you came from? Are you trying to prove a point?
I have a huge ego.
I think we all have to.
I was on track until like junior high, and my family started to fall apart at the same fucking time. And I think that I went into this sort of huge, like, you know, this
introversion,
this gulf, you know, where I didn't have. You know, I remember, you know, trying out for a play in high school and having when I was 13, I had a poem published, you know, in a small book. And I went to the Ohio Poetry Conference and I read this poem to all these people. They've
rejected every one of my poems. I just had to say that real clearly into the microphone that they've rejected all of my poems.
I came back pumped. I thought, this is something I can fucking do. And I like writing. I love writing. You know?
Writing is fun.
You know?
It's hard as shit.
Oh, I hate it. I mean, it's painful. It's painful. You know, but I remember I wrote a short story, and it was stupid. I know it was fucking stupid. I was 13, you know? It's like, you know, and I didn't have mentors in high school. I hear people talk about that shit all the time. It's like, where the fuck did you go, man?
My mentors were in college and after.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it. I didn't have any.
But I showed it to my English teacher, and she laughed at me. And she dismissed it. And it fucking devastated me. Mrs. Channel. I remember her fucking red lipstick and these
I hope she's dead. We need a new death in this podcast.
Yeah, I fucking killed her.
It's been a while since I
fucking killed her, man. Her nicotine-stained teeth, you know.
We need a good death in this podcast.
It shut me fucking down. And ever since then,
rejection is fucking
writing
so
like,
good.
Like I wrote research papers as a cultural anthropologist. I wrote research papers. But most of that was built on objective reality and other people's research. So it wasn't original material it wasn't fiction. You know what I mean?
I did the same thing with philosophy. Like that's where I went from creative writing to philosophy in college, and writing philosophy papers was way easier than writing an original short story.
Right. I mean, I graduated cum laude from the University of Maryland. I graduated with honors from Bowling Green. But I was writing shit about other people's shit. It wasn't like I find fictional writing like stories and stuff like I've thousands of them all over the fucking
original
place.
Thought is hard to come by.
Oh man, it's painful. I've been in writers' groups and listened to people talk about, I really love writing these characters, and it's like, I would love to get to that point, where I love writing these characters, but one-liners, man, one-liners.
We'll get to that.
One fucking liners, man. It's a short shot, and I can come back to it. It works with the Asperger's, because I don't have the attention span necessarily, so I put it on an index card, think about it for a while, bring another one out, do that, So that's part of it that works for me. The other part is I think the world's a ridiculous goddamn place, and I've always had this just kind of absurd sort of fucking sense of humor. I mean, ever since I was a kid.
It'd be really hard for me. This is why I think my nephews. Yeah. Let's both bust them out. I think it'd be hard for me to go back and think of when, like, absurdist, crazy, dark, like, uncomfortable humor became funny to me. But I do think that it's just, like, you have the one tragedy in your life, right? Which, for me, the original tragedy was when, basically playing hooky and my mom telling me my parents are getting divorced.
Right.
Yeah, like, that was the original, like, just... my entire world came crashing down. But you can't see the world the same way you did before that, after that.
Right.
Like, you're colored.
Right.
And there's lenses that are now thrown on there, and you cannot take those lenses off.
Right.
And once you see enough of that, like last year I had... honestly, I lost count, but I want to say 5, but a minimum of 3 of my friends die.
Yeah.
I didn't take a single day off of work.
Right.
Like, I didn't really... It's just... It's hard for me to process that stuff. But I think the fact that I get up on stage as often as I can and try to... And you've probably seen me just eat it when I'm just telling a story about one of my friends that just died.
Right.
And just, like, people are just like, this isn't funny. And I'm like, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be weird. And hopefully at the end I get one joke out of it. You know how it is to process stuff. And you have to do it.
Yeah.
But, like, it's really... Once you see the world a certain way, you can't go back. I can, at least. I don't want to speak for other people.
I literally do not talk about anything I haven't experienced at some level. Like, when I talk about the guy getting stabbed in the feet so he couldn't leave the house, that's a true story. That's a true story.
That's why that joke is so good, because it's obviously true.
I talk about, hanging out with Dee Dee, and Dee Dee says, let me stab you in the eyes when you come, and I say, well, Dee Dee, how the fuck are we going to get home because you don't know how to drive, or you don't have a driver's license. Dee Dee said that to me, Dee Dee was fucking,
Again, I'm falling in love with Dee Dee every time you talk about her. Like, dude.
she would corrupt your fucking ass, man. I mean,
do you think I'm corruptible? Like, I'm already corrupt. I'm already corrupt. Let's be honest.
I mean, when I first got out of high school, because I had no direction, I wasn't going to college. Me
neither.
And my parents were
I moved out before I even graduated, before my exams were even
with their own shit, And plus, I think I overwhelmed them in a lot of ways because I was bullheaded and I did what the fuck I wanted to do most of the time, So I was on my own. So I ran with heroin addicts and ex-cons, and go-go dancers and all of these people, because that's where the cultural anthropology came from. Because I love subculture. I love watching what people do.
You probably grew up with punk rock. You probably grew up with
absolutely.
all that shit.
I didn't really have much interest in pop music till the Sex Pistols came out. You know, and then
Whoa.
Minor
That's
Threat.
Controversial. Sex Pistols. Just for the listeners, punk rock band. Little known fact, also made by the industry to be.
Of course,
they were the first pop punk, like actual pop punk.
Iggy and the Stooges, the MC5, all of that shit. I listened to all.
I grew up on like actual pop punk, which is like sad emo with really dark chords and breakdowns. That's my shit.
I like the intensity of the music. You know, I don't much listen to. I don't hear
the violence is weird to me, but I feel the frustration. You know what I mean? Like
I don't hear lyrics very well. I never have.
Me neither. Dude, whoa.
But I like.
Neither. I've been a singer in a band. I'll listen to the songs that I write, and I sometimes can't understand myself. That's how bad of a listener I am.
But when you got like Minor Threat going, I see red.
You're like,
that
energy,
shit. That fucking energy.
It makes you want to look up the lyrics. Maybe read the pamphlets that coming out of DC in this post-punk Discord, scene where you're like, oh shit, this isn't necessarily anti-government. It's anti-establishment, which was like the first time that was like it was made clear that it was like the government's there because they were like socialists before or democratic socialists before they were a thing, right? Which you kind of seems like you subscribe to a little bit, but.
As a democratic socialist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But for me,
I try not to talk politics,
fine. But for me, it was more. It's more of an oral kind of thing, not ORALAUARA.
Right.
You know, it's the
sonic thing.
The intensity of the sound. You know, the speed, all of that stuff.
So
it meets my fucking energy.
Did you like the early hardcore stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Minor Threat is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, you know the Huns.
All that San Diego scene. 3-1G and
pre-Henry Black Flag, you know, Circle Jerks, you know,
Charles Bronson,
all of that shit. Yeah.
So there's two more topics I want to hit with you.
Okay.
One.
I'm sorry.
No. You're good. This has been a wonderful interview. How do you feel?
Great.
Hell yeah. You enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I think we have very similar sort of sensibilities and viewpoints.
Are you saying I'm on the spectrum? Is that
pretty much it?
All right. One thing I wanted to tap into is this unscripted thing. Like, break it down. What is Columbus Unscripted?
We're sort of a nonprofit, community-based organization, kind of with the goal of doing outreach and bringing comedy. And the opportunity to perform comedy or do improv, stand-up, those kinds of things, to sort of underserved markets sometimes, you know, looking for talent in places where people wouldn't normally look for talent, providing opportunities for people who don't necessarily have the resources. Like when I was a kid, you know, we had a whole lot of money, so I couldn't take classes and stuff like that, you know. So if there was an opportunity to do something for free or really cheap, you know, people might be more open or able to kind of get into that.
Now, is this designated mostly to the youth, or is this applied to
anybody? In fact,
even maybe perhaps like released prisoners, or release convicts that maybe like need a
Columbus
purpose in
Unscripted
life
is actually associated with Healing Broken Circles. And they do an improv program at Marion Correctional Institute.
Okay, I've heard about this.
Yeah. And
the prison thing to me, like every time I donate, it's always the Innocence Project. Like I strongly believe that shit's just absolutely awful, and I'd really like to think that maybe a program like what you have could allow some 50-year-old guy that's been wrongfully incarcerated for 30 years that's developed a skill that can like translate and also send a message. I think that's important.
And we've done some of that. We've done that. Yeah, absolutely, we've done that. You know, my thing is there are people who are out there who probably have an incredible amount of talent, who lack the access or the resources to kind of get into things. You know, and people are intimidated by it. Like when I first
was too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you if you don't. if you don't come from that kind of environment, or you don't have people sort of,
it's hard to be
resourcing you or supporting you. You know, it's intimidating.
It's hard to be an artist when everyone around you isn't.
Sure.
Which is like, I was lucky enough to be raised around, my friends were all skateboarders, and we all played music as well. So it was a natural progression that, like, the older we got, the less good we got at skateboarding, and, like, people were surpassing us. It was like music was always there.
Right.
And so being an artist for me has always been easy in my community. Not easy in my family, but easy in my community.
Right.
And that's allowed me a lot of, you know, that's why I went from music to comedy and everything in between. I make music videos and all this other stuff. Right. So most people don't have that just streamline of community to be able to, hey, it's okay. You like to be goofy?
Right.
It's okay to just be goofy. Right. You know, like, most people don't know that.
When I was a kid growing up in Mansfield, you either went to college or the factory. You know, that was your two streams, you know. And there wasn't anything in between, you know. I mean, you know, there wasn't, you know, performing arts high schools or any of that kind of stuff. So you had very little resource if you didn't fit into that fucking mold. And I never did. I mean, I never did. You know, so when I graduated, I had no idea what to fucking do and didn't think that I could do anything. And what we're trying to do with Columbus Unscripted is to sort of, you know, investigate all these different avenues of people who you know, you may have, you know, I just saw this guy the other night on YouTube. He's called the Lost Voice Guy, and he uses a communication device to do stand-up comedy. He's fucking hilarious.
What do you mean? Like
he types it in. He interacts with his communication device. Like,
so what is it, like a projector and a screen?
No, it's one of those like Stephen Hawking's, like, hello, how are you kind of things.
Oh, you know? That's how he does.
Yeah,
that sounds like a TED Talk, but yeah,
fucking hysterical, man. I mean, he's really, really good.
I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of like what you do with the index cards. It seems like you know, it seems like it's just a perfectly written joke, and it's just delivered in this certain cadence that gives it. Like, when you make a joke about, you know, living within, you know, being a sex offender, which you're not, but you make a joke about being a sex offender living within the, you know,
quarter mile of my house,
of the school or whatever.
Right.
Like, the way you deliver it and the cadence, it's always delivered the exact same way, and that's what makes that joke funny.
Right.
The way you deliver it, and so this is just like automating that.
Well, the thing about that particular joke, though, that really drives me nuts is people immediately assume it's about a pedophile, and that's them filling in this blank. You could just be that guy that flashed his fucking dick, you know, in the window.
Dude,
you know.
I feel like so I've been sleepwalking recently, and I
really
rue the day that I'm gonna walk out of here and piss on someone's house and get a sex offender thing because my dick's out, just because I'm not awake and I'm just pissing somewhere.
Well, Ian Miller. Oh, take that out.
I'm not bleeping shit.
he called me creepy like you have, you know, because I did.
We joke about that.
I know.
I'm
teasing you, you know, because I did a couple of back.
Ian Miller hates you, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Does he really?
Nah, I don't.
I would assume that because I do this sort of, I do some of these back-to-back things, you know, like, you know, dead babies and then that, you know, and he said, you know, and then you did a pedophile joke, and I'm like, you know, I'm not defining what the sex offender is, you know. There's a whole range of things.
There could be a range of things.
Absolutely, you know, because, you know, I'm not advocating any of this stuff, you know. I'm talking about it because, you know, we like to bury this shit, but, you know.
Also, you're a character comedian, like like sometimes, well, like I was talking about at the beginning, when you bring it and you put the cards aside, and you start talking about your actual life, it's just not as effective for me. But it's because you break character, you know, and I'm not saying don't do that. Obviously, we went through that, but it's one of those things that, like, if someone's gonna hate you or think you're creepy because of your creepy jokes, What kind? Like,
they're
honestly,
missing the point,
dude. If there was a stand, this is one thing I can honestly say. There's never been a serial killer that was a stand-up comic.
Right. Well,
you know, like we're all too honest for that shit. We turn ourselves in.
It's you want to pull rank on my ass? You just fucking laughed.
Yeah,
you just fucking
just laughed.
And that's
and
what
now you're talking.
That's
shit.
what I'll say. I'll say, your head went there, not mine.
Right.
You filled in that fucking blank.
Well, I think that's why people get upset about it. And I'm not saying this happened to this person specifically, but I'm just saying that's where people get uncomfortable. Like, oh fuck, I went there. Right. Oh shit. Oh, now am I that person?
and that's my point.
Yeah.
Is I'm gonna take.
Dude, I know what kind of piece of shit I am. Right up there, man. I know what kind of piece of shit.
I'm not creepy. I'm transgressive. I understand exactly where the fucking boundaries that I'm crossing over are. I'm not doing this.
Also, you're fucking hilarious. It's just joke writing. It's like
right.
Like I guarantee you. Like back in the day of Jim Carrey, before he got on SNL or any of that shit, like when he had, at the Comedy Store with the fucking huge shoulder pads, said the same jokes, would have been fine.
Right.
And look at Jim Carrey now. He's like the fucking lefty, president.
And that's...
Which I love. I love Jim Carrey. I'm not...
Did we cover Columbus Unscripted enough to your...
Well, I don't know. Do we not for you?
Oh, no, I'm fine. I just don't care if we talk about it or not. I like talking about me. So,
Well, no. I mean, we went through
I like writing. I like the craft of writing. I like streamlining shit, and taking out words, putting in words, and all of that stuff, and trying to find that flow, so it hits hard enough, that.
Do you like writing scripts or jokes or
jokes?
Both?
I like writing jokes. I mean, I've been doing sketch writing classes for Columbus Unscripted. I do a couple of them every month. We do sketch writing. Stuff. It's bullshit. I mean, it's just exercises, But I tell people, you learn to write by writing. That's what you do.
It's the only thing you can do to get better.
Right.
No one ever just Right. Stephen Hawking didn't just wake up and figure out the fucking origin of the universe. Right. That's not how that works. Right. He spent years and years of writing, thinking, thinking, and all of that shit we didn't see. Most of that shit we didn't see. I always say this. I don't know if I always say this. I said I always say this, but I don't know if that's true. But 95% of what an artist does, no one ever finds out about.
Right.
5% is the shit that's cream of the crop, and that's why you like them. Well, and that includes interviews, it includes podcasts, it includes photographs, it includes everything. Right. And but 95% of our lives are lived where, I lay in bed and just watch NCIS all day,
And that's with the sketch writing workshops. What I tell people is where I'm not looking for end product; it's the process we're focused on. I said because with Saturday Night Live,
that's really good for improv. That's really good for improv. The process being the most important part.
Yeah, because like with Saturday Night Live, I mean, you don't see all the shit that goes on behind it, but then when you watch the program, about 90% of it is crap, and maybe 10% hits pretty hard, and that's kind of the way that it is, because you got to just keep, just churning through this.
I feel the same way about being an open micer. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's exactly the same thing.
If I have the time, if I can do it, if it's in my schedule, I will sit through everybody's set.
Try. And see if they got better or
absolutely.
worse. Or
and I've
what.
seen it. And I've seen it happen. It jumps out at me sometimes. People, I'll hear this joke and they'll go, they switched it up. They moved it around and made it, they made it better. I want somebody to quit doing those fucking Apple jokes.
Yeah, it seemed like once the fruit jokes and the vegetable jokes came out, they were like all out. Which, dude, but that's what's fun to see, like how people like-minded thinking, and also like you pick up on something, and you're like, well, this is a different take. Yeah. Every time if I hear another comic like make a joke that's related to something that I've been thinking about, or like thinking about making a joke about, or you already have a joke about, I go up to him, I'm like, hey, either you can have this one or I can have this one. And I'll give you my tags. Like, I'll give you whatever you want. But, like, what happens when we go back to back? That's, dude, when I did a Funny Bone for the semifinals, I forget who was before Gilly, but whoever was before Gilly did a bunch of meth jokes. And then Gilly went on and did his meth joke. And my opener is a meth joke. That sucked. And I can't rewrite my set at the fucking semifinals of the Funny Bone competition. Dude, I was the whole time I was just like, it's like nothing I can do.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do is hopefully make a better meth joke than they did.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I think Gilly's brilliant.
Well, dude, I've had to follow Gilly many a time, and he's the hardest person to follow.
I've seen him, the last few times I've seen him, he's just been fucking lit, man. And I mean, it's just like really smart and just, like all tied together and everything.
He doesn't just have jokes. He's got stories with fucking, like say what you want about Mike Birbiglia, like I think he's a brilliant comic and a brilliant writer.
Who? Birbiglia?
Mike Birbiglia.
Okay, yeah.
I think he's brilliant at the whole one man show thing. He's brilliant. He's brilliant at tackling whatever medium he's going for.
Right.
And comedy has become less jokey and more storytell.
It has.
In the boom since the most recent, the second boom, I guess you'd call it. Right. But if you listen to Gilly, and then you tell like his like certain jokes about his friends and his family, and his and then you listen to like Richard Pryor of talking about like how he caught himself on fire doing crack and the fucking prostitute. It's like, yeah, that's like there's something being tapped into that like a lot of other people missed. Gilly's
able to act it through. Like he's able to see, this is the thing. One of the things, in some ways, for me, one-liners are kind of a crutch because I really,
if you're good at something, just be good at something. I'm not saying don't expand.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I there's a part of me that wants to do more of that kind of stuff necessarily, but I work on all of it. But I look at I watch a lot of comics. I pay attention to a lot of comics. I look at a lot of comics.
Most people don't watch comics.
I don't look at the mainstream.
I try to watch them as well. I try to watch everyone.
There's a dude called Mark Forward out of Canada. This guy is fucking hilarious. I mean, his delivery is incredible. His stories are just ridiculous. I mean, he's fucking amazing. I was listening to him last night, like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting there listening to this guy. He's like, how do you do this? How do you get comfortable with this? Because he's not telling jokes necessarily, but he's animating language in a way that's
it's like
fucking
Joey Diaz.
Funny.
Joey Diaz to me does the same thing.
I gotta look at him. I'm not.
Dude, he was in jail for kidnapping. He was a coke head for a long time. He was in basketball, actually, just to bring it back. He was in Longest Yard. His career has been so insane. And he didn't start comedy until when I started comedy. And just to know that he's 50, I think 3 now. 55 now, and now he's popping. It's like, that's one thing people don't understand about comedy is there's no way you're going to get anything until 20 years after you start your career.
Right. I'm shit out of luck.
Yeah. What are you going to be 112 by then? Is that what? but that's why I know that people that go on stage every night and I see them there every night, that's why I know they're actually in it for real. It's not... You see, I'm sure I've been there for about 2 years. You've been there for a little over
I've seen the dropouts.
You've seen the dropouts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes sense. When the first time you see them on stage, you're like, oh yeah, that one's fucking dropping out.
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
They don't have the gumption. They don't have the fucking actual want to do it.
I don't hit as many mics as I want to because I got other shit going on, because I'd be out at every fucking night. Because there are days when it's like there are dry periods on the weekends, especially. Where it's sort of like, I just want to go.
So I love
stage.
those Saturday open mics.
I just want to fucking tell some jokes, man. I just want to go up and do this.
Don't you wait for it all day when you wake up and you're just like, I can't wait to hit for 5 minutes. You wait all day for 5 fucking minutes.
Well, and the thing for me too is that I'm like, I want my head to slow down, that 5 minutes, because I want to use that 5 minutes to work and experiment, and be conscious enough of my being on that stage to try the shit that I want to try versus just going to my material immediately. It's like, so
But you have to do every now and then. Every now and then you're like, sure. Oh fuck it. The room is so full and
right, sure.
I don't want to make anyone look bad. Right. So I'm gonna make sure I go through the stuff that works.
Right.
Which I call that my act.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have an act.
Yeah. When I walk in and if there are people there that haven't seen my shit a million fucking times,
at least
then I'll stack the deck with stuff I know is going to get a laugh.
I want to ask you, this is the final, I guess, question I wanted to ask you, and this is going to be very narcissistic of me.
Okay.
But you always seem to enjoy my comedy, and I wanted to ask you why.
I think you're nuts. I think that you're not afraid of just walking out on the fucking edge. And just kind of playing with the whole medium.
Was there a moment that you were like, "Oh, who the fuck is this person?"
When you played the piano, when you did that dumb shit, I think that's.
I think I remember that at Ethel's, like after me playing the piano, it was the first time that you were like, because you've always been nice to me. I'm not saying but there was one time you came to me like that was fucking tight.
I think, I think at base I understand you're really working at this.
I care,
and I'm fucking dead serious about it.
And that's what we're just talking about.
Obviously, I will either be like the oldest comic in the world or the deadest comic in the world, but I'm dead serious about it. I'm fucking serious about doing what I can do with whatever time I have on the fucking planet. Whenever I would, I've in my head have been doing stand up since I was like 5 fucking years old. But I had other shit that I was doing and I was interested in.
Like going AWOL twice.
Well, that but I did disability work for a long time, and I like that work.
We'll get to that. I'm definitely gonna have you back, and we'll dig deeper because this is definitely a part 2 to a story in your life that we need to get to.
Okay, but I respect people that engage the craft because that's what it is.
You could tell I was playing with it.
You know what? What I really hate is when I get shoved to the back of the fucking line so some dumbass, fucking college freshman can come up and impress his fucking friends with some stupid fucking story about, being at the mall or what the fuck ever, who hasn't put any work into it. I don't like it when people go up and I didn't really think about this before. Well, then get the fuck off the stage because, you're taking up time here. I don't want to see this shit. It's like I want people... I come to see people that are trying to be artists, who are trying to do this. I fucking Joel Donahue just makes me fucking crazy. I mean, he's insanely.
I just booked him on the show because he's always been one of my.
He's ridiculous.
Talk about Jim Carrey. That dude is animated as fuck on stage, and I love it. I love every moment of it.
Did you see him when he was doing True Real stuff? Are you shitting me?
He was doing True Reels material?
Man, it was God. It was the best fucking thing in the world, man.
Is that why True Reels not around anymore? Yeah. Like, what the fuck, dude?
He was just reading this shit off his phone, man. That like my dick is so big, it's like, and it was fucking genius. I mean, it was fucking genius.
Yeah, no, he has a way of he. Talk about someone with fucking anxiety problems. That dude, he's anxious, he's weary, but he's fearless.
Oh yeah,
and that right there is a perfect combination of an artist.
I'm jealous as shit.
That's a perfect combination of an artist right there.
I see somebody like Bettina Hedwig. She walks on stage and she just and it's
she's
funny
fucking
as shit.
Hilarious. I know,
but you see her all the time, and she's always working. She's fucking serious about it. She's serious about it. And I respect anybody that walks out on stage because it takes a lot of hair to do that. But I really, really like watching people evolve as performers. That's what I like to see.
And that's why you like to watch other people perform. And I do the same thing. I don't watch everyone perform, but I try to make sure that I watch at least 5 other comics perform before I go on. And if I'm not like rushing out to go to some other place or whatever, I'll stick around and watch it. Because I that's the thing, it's a love for the craft, right?
Right.
It's a love to see, like, because obviously you've seen me get better.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have.
I was really, fuck you. I was really bad when I started, though. I was angry. I was mean.
Yeah.
I was awful. I've learned from that, you
but
know?
When you do it enough, you start to slow down and get comfortable on stage, you know? And see, and that's the thing that for me is interesting, you know, from a personal standpoint, is I feel really at home when I'm standing on that fucking stage, man. I feel, you know, for me, it's the autism is my brain starts to, like, the part of the strategy for the cards too is if I walk out there without some kind of prompt, it all fucking disappears because the stimulus is so much that it just overwhelms me. But I'm not nervous. I'm just blank.
Well, this is an interesting point because I talked to Ty about this and I talked to CVJ about this as well. Like the anxiety, how does that work for you? Does it fuel it? Does it hurt it? Does it?
I'm usually like there are nights when I'm if somebody's really, if people are really landing good, you know, or you know, I'll judge the shit out of myself prior to going on stage.
I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, but I'm at a point where I understand that you know, first of all, I've signed up. I'm not bailing on somebody, you know, because I'm leaving a blank space or whatever. But also from a personal standpoint, I can't do that to myself. So I'm going to have to push myself through this shit. But once I get on stage, all of that fucking goes away. You know, it's all
fucking
gone.
fun to do that.
It's I love it.
It's thrilling, and even if you spend all day for 5 minutes, that it's worth it.
Right, and so it all goes back to being,
even if you bomb,
being hated in 13. You know, and now fuck you. See who's clapping for me, you motherfuckers. You know, if I can do that, you know, I mean, I do, and I like making people laugh. I've always loved making people laugh. I think it's healthy.
I'm a very sad, depressed, optimistic person. Like pessimistic, optimistic. Like, you know, I ride two trails. Like I'm very easy. For me, it's easy to be both. I know it's hard for some people, but it's easy for me to do both.
You should talk to my wife. We just had a big argument yesterday about how I'm constantly angry. So, you know, it's like...
Jesus. All right, we'll have to save that for the second podcast. Yeah. Anything you have to plug? Any shows coming up? Anything?
Nah, I'm not getting booked these days, so it's okay.
You have nothing coming up? I mean, look forward to the new season of Unscripted.
Yeah, absolutely. 3rd and 4th Monday of the month. I do writing workshops starting at 6, and then the show starts at sign-ups start like after that, and shows start usually 7:10. Admission's $5, but if you come for the workshop, you pay $5. You get the whole shot. And it's just an opportunity to be in a structured environment where you have, you know, opportunity to do some writing. And we always do, like coming up, I'm going to share some tools with people on how to sort of a framework for sketch writing. And then you work on, you know, sketch, and then you go up on stage and you give us what you got, you know. And we're trying to build an environment where people feel comfortable giving one another feedback in a constructive manner, you know, and bootstrap everybody's success, and you know, so 3rd and 4th Monday of every month. So
well, that sounds awesome. At Wild Goose Collective.
That's correct, up on Summit Street. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, I thank you so much, Sam. I'm definitely going to have you back.
Okay, cool.
We got one... You're so old, we only got through one half of your life story.
Now you got to do a third, man. I've been in 9 car wrecks.
Dude, I might write your fucking biography. Who knows? Because you just gave me some gold. That first half was fucking beautiful,
Sweet.
man. Beautiful.
Okay.
I do appreciate you coming by, and we'll definitely have you back.
Yeah.
I just want to say that every week at Jimmy V's, I host the open mic at South High Jimmy V's, and on the 26th, we have a show coming up featuring Joel Donahue, JR Jr., Ty Moore, and a headliner, Amber Falter. That's the 26th.
And not me.
And definitely not Sam. Sam will be taking a shit in the bathroom the whole time, smelling up the room. And it's hosted by me and you all know Chris Dottie. And there's a bucket spot available, so maybe you will get on, Sam.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Anything you want to...
Nope. We're good.
All right.
I appreciate it very much. I had a good time. Absolutely.